Deep inside the bunkers of World War II, a new generation of weapons unleashed fire hotter than molten metal, turning close-quarter combat into a living nightmare. These were the deadliest inventions most people have never seen. Devices like the 65-pound M2 flamethrower or thermite grenades burn in above 2,500 degrees Celsius, designed to end a fight before mercy could begin. But what forced nations to build weapons so feared they would later be buried by history, and just how close did ordinary soldiers come to burning alive? The answer starts with the first pull of a trigger. A flamethrower operator shoulders 65 pounds of tanks, hose and a steel wand, just enough fuel for a handful of fire bursts. The German Flammenwerfer 41, the American M2 and the Soviet ROKS all share the same core anatomy: dual fuel cylinders pressurized by nitrogen or compressed air, a hose and a nozzle where ignition happens. In the German models, an electric spark at the nozzle or a pyrotechnic cartridge sets the stream alight, hurling burning fuel up to 35 meters. The American M2, improved from earlier designs, uses a hybrid electric and cartridge igniter, but field reports from the Pacific say that when the battery failed in wet conditions, matches or burning paper sometimes had to finish the job. Soviet engineers took a different approach. The ROKS flamethrower conceals its nozzle in a fake rifle barrel, making the operator look like any other infantryman, an attempt to survive longer on the battlefield, where flamethrower men are priority targets. Training films show assault engineers rehearsing bunker assaults with live fire, moving in teams with riflemen for cover. Each burst lasts only a second or two, enough to fill a pillbox with fire or force defenders from trenches. The effective range, 20 to 40 meters, means operators must close to within grenade throwing distance, exposed and carrying volatile fuel. Propellant gas pressure must be checked before every use. Leaks or failed ignition can be fatal. In combat, the payoff is brutal efficiency. Defenders often abandon their posts at the sight or sound of a flamethrower, knowing the weapon kills by fire, asphyxiation, and shock. Yet for every position cleared, the operator risks being cut down before reaching the target, or worse, igniting their own tanks if hit. The vulnerability of these men and the short range of their weapons would soon drive armies to seek mechanized solutions for delivering firepower at a safer distance. A single M1A1 incendiary grenade, packed with thermite, burns at temperatures above 2,500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt through half an inch of steel in seconds. In the Pacific, these grenades were thrown into bunkers, caves and pillboxes, igniting fuel stores, ammunition, or simply filling confined spaces with fire and toxic smoke. Japanese Type 3 incendiary rifle grenades, often loaded with white phosphorus and rubber pellets, clung to surfaces and continued burning, spreading flames across dugouts and timber walls. The aftermath was not just destroyed equipment or collapsed defenses, but wounds that defied easy treatment. Medical teams in field hospitals faced burns that seared deep into muscle and bone, often requiring amputation or months of painful care. Survivors spoke of the agony of inhaling superheated air, the smell of burning flesh, and the long, silent burden that followed them home. Red Cross reports from the war rarely separated flamethrower or incendiary grenade injuries from other burns, but they record that these wounds demanded more resources, longer hospital stays, and left scars, physical and psychological, that lasted a lifetime. The statistics are lost in the aggregate, yet the human cost remains visible in wartime photographs and the testimonies of those who lived through fire. The stigma attached to these weapons, sharpened by their humanitarian impact, would echo in post-war debates about the limits of acceptable warfare. The first years of World War II saw infantry squads equipped with anti-tank rifles, weapons designed to punch through the armor of early tanks that rolled across Poland, France, and the Soviet Union. The German Panzerbuchse 39 fired a 7.92 by 94 mm round, capable of piercing up to 30 mm of armor at 100 meters, enough to stop a Panzer I or Panzer II, or even the sides of early Panzer III tanks. On the Eastern Front, Soviet troops relied on the PTR D-41, a single-shot behemoth, chambered in 14.5 by 114mm. Its heavy bullet meant to disable German light, armour, half-tracks, and armoured cars. The Polish WZ-35, developed in secrecy by Józef Maroszek and his team, was hidden in sealed crates and only distributed days before the German invasion. Its armour-piercing bullet was a closely guarded secret, and many Polish soldiers only learned its true purpose on the eve of combat. Test range footage from 1939 shows these rifles punching clean holes through armour plates, but their supremacy was brief. By 1941, tank armour had thickened and sloped, rendering most anti-tank rifles ineffective against new models. Infantrymen turned to other targets: machine gun nests, soft-skinned vehicles, even low-flying aircraft. But the era of the anti-tank rifle as a tank killer was over. The rapid evolution of armour forced armies to seek new answers, setting the stage for shaped charges and more radical anti-armour solutions. A shaped charge is not just an explosive, it is a lesson in physics, weaponized. The Monroe effect, discovered decades before the war, uses a conical cavity lined with metal, and when detonated, collapses that lining into a jet that can move faster than a bullet. That jet can punch a hole through armour many times thicker than the charge itself. The German Haftorladung put this principle into the hands of infantry. 3 magnetic claws snapped onto a tank's hull, holding the device in place while a timed fuse ticked away. British engineers, lacking strong magnets, answered with the No. 74 sticky bomb, a glass sphere filled with nitroglycerin-based gel, its outer layer coated in adhesive. In both cases, success demanded a soldier get within arm's reach of a moving tank, often while under fire. Training films and propaganda reels showed perfect placements on clean, stationary targets. In reality, dust, mud, and sloped armour could defeat the adhesive or cause the magnets to slip. Operators faced machine gun fire, the risk of being crushed, and the chance of premature detonation. Reports from the field mentioned devices failing to stick, fuses malfunctioning, or the user never making it back. The shaped charge's physics were sound, but the price of delivery was often a human life. These weapons proved that ingenuity could outpace conventional armour, but also that the most brilliant design could not always protect the person holding it. Compact submachine guns promised new options for troops fighting in tight spaces, but few reached the front in significant numbers. The Japanese Type 100 paratrooper variant, built for airborne assaults, featured a folding metal stock and chambered the 8x22mm Nambu cartridge. Its design allowed paratroopers to jump with a weapon that could be made ready in seconds after landing. The cyclic rate hovered around 700 rounds per minute, far faster than the bolt-action rifles that dominated Japanese infantry units. Yet production was limited to a few hundred, and most Japanese soldiers never saw one. In Germany, engineers at IAMA experimented with the EMP-44, a prototype built almost entirely from stamped steel tubing and fitted with a crude fixed stock. The most distinctive feature was its dual magazine clamp, holding 2 MP40 magazines side by side to double the available rounds before reloading. Intended as a cheap emergency weapon for Volkssturm units, only a handful of EMP-44s were ever made. Wartime trials criticized its poor handling and reliability, and it never went into mass production. Both designs reflected a late war push for high-volume automatic fire in close combat, but neither had the chance to tip the balance before the war ended. German engineers fielded the Goliath and Borgward B-4 to breach obstacles and destroy bunkers from a distance, hoping to spare assault troops from direct fire. The Goliath, a compact tracked vehicle, carried up to 100 kilograms of explosives and was steered by a thin control cable stretching hundreds of meters behind it. On paper, the concept promised safe demolition at the push of a button, but in practice the system faltered. Reports from the front describe cables snagged or cut by bullets and shrapnel, leaving the majority of Goliaths stranded short of their targets. Radio-controlled Borg wards fared little better. Signals were easily jammed or lost in the chaos of battle, and thin armour meant that even rifle fire could stop them. Despite thousands built, most were disabled or abandoned before reaching enemy lines. The fragility of these early remote weapons forced commanders to keep relying on manual charges and human engineers for critical breaches. A demolition pack is nothing more than a canvas satchel packed with blocks of TNT, 4 to 9 kilograms depending on the target. Assault engineers crawl forward under covering fire, hugging the ground, clutching the charge by its carrying strap. Training films show the ritual. Pull the safety pin, set the time fuse, and wedge the pack tight against a bunker door frame or the base of a reinforced wall. The clock starts ticking. There is no remote control. Success depends on how close the charge is placed and how quickly the operator can retreat before detonation. When it works, the explosion rips open concrete, collapses firing positions, and clears a path. But the risk is absolute. Every second spent exposed can mean death from machine gun fire or shrapnel. Despite the dangers, these manual methods remained essential, especially where remote vehicles failed or could not reach the target. Tank-mounted flamethrowers answered the dangers faced by foot operators combining thick armor and massive fuel reserves. The Soviet OT-34 could project fire up to 100 meters, while the Churchill Crocodile's armoured trailer carried 400 gallons of fuel for repeated assaults. American Flame Shermans, though less capacious, extended reach in the Pacific. These machines demanded constant maintenance and complex supply lines, but nothing else cleared bunkers and trenches so efficiently from behind armour. Even as technology evolves, the search for a decisive advantage in war never ends. Only the methods change. Many of these inventions now sit behind glass, but their legacy shapes every new weapon, policy, and ethical debate. The line between innovation and atrocity remains as thin as ever. Share your thoughts below.